Perfect. All right. So I want to thank you for being able to do this interview today with me. We're going to go over a few things, just touching on your leadership positions that you have at your university and just through your community. And then I kind of just want to get to know you better as a person as well. So if you want to just start out, tell me who you are, where you're from, and then what you're studying.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. So my name is Amy Lopez Hernandez. I am a senior at UNO, majoring in secondary education with endorsements in English language arts and Spanish, as well as a major in foreign languages and literature with the concentration in Spanish. Originally I am from Crete, Nebraska. That is where I grew up and went to school my entire life before I came to UNO. So yeah.
Awesome. And then how would you say that like being raised in Crete, it's like a smaller area. I'm from a bigger city myself. How would you say that that has impacted your leadership style growing up?
Um, so it's actually funny. In middle school, we had like student council applications going on, and I did not want to be a part of it. I had no intention of, doing anything. I was just gonna be my own little bubble. And then the guidance counselor at the time, like I was kind of close with him. I don't remember what the relationship was, like, because it was like some sort of class. Um, and he handed me the application and he said, "You are applying for this." I was like, okay, cool. I guess I'll apply for it. And then from there, that's kind of like how I decided to, be involved in activities and pursue leadership positions, just because it was like that final push I needed. And it kind of set off a chain reaction. But I feel like in small schools or, in a small town, you have that time, like that one-on-one time, then I would say maybe in a bigger town to, have someone look out for you, have someone like see the strengths that you carry to in order to like push you where you need to be.
Yeah. And I can relate to that also. The city I'm from is big, but the high school that I went to, my graduating class was like 130 people. So we are very like student body oriented with like all of our teachers that we had. So I also had like that push from certain teachers to get me into those positions. So that's good to hear. So, what organizations or groups are you a part of, like on your campus and your community? Just give me a little bit about those.
Yeah. So, currently at the moment, I am president of TITO, which is our Teacher Education Diversity Organization located within the College of Education, Health and Human Sciences. I was just finishing up my term as CPC or Collegiate Panhellenic Council president at our campus. Um, Prior to that, so my junior year, I was student body vice president for student government, as well as a member of Student Alliance, which is kind of like this student advocacy group within the NU system, just to advocate for our campuses and change that we need. Before that, I was a student senator as well as a student speaker or the speaker of the Senate. And then my freshman year, I was in the Freshman Leadership Council. So a lot of this was all with student government. And when I was the student body vice president, I was in charge of the Freshman Leadership Council. I am also in a sorority, Chi Omega, and I've held the sisterhood support team, like mentor, I guess you can say, where I help new members within our chapter kind of get acclimated to it and just help them along their way in their first year experience at school. Um, what else? There's so much.
Yeah, I can tell. And that's great to hear that you're involved in so many different things and that you can just touch on all these different areas and impact so many people's lives. How would you say that your leadership style and the way that you carry yourself has affected these organizations and like the things that you see brought out most from being in these spots?
Yeah. Um, so I've always been like I guess like the supportive piece, like those in those higher positions. Because growing up and even now, I sometimes kind of doubt myself being in like presidential positions just because I never really thought I could achieve something of that high standing. So prior to, getting placed as president in those various organizations, I just kind of helped out wherever needed. I would help out, the president or the vice president or the directors and just kind of do a lot of the work. So now being in those president positions, it's definitely been a shift in changing from delegating to wanting to do all the work myself.
Yeah.
Um, I did not think it was supposed to be difficult, but it was. But when I was like, the one that would do all the work, I, really wanted to incorporate everyone. And that's kind of something that I carry on now is just, ensuring that everyone is included, ensuring that everyone is heard, but also just making sure that everyone feels welcomed in that space because it's not supposed to be, something that excludes just a few set of people.
Yeah.
Um, and I had a mentor who was talking about how leadership is not just about a position, it's about the growth and the experience you have with it. And if you view leadership as, the position or the title, then it's not really worth it. And that just like really stuck with me in my freshman year. And that's something that's like influenced me every step of the way.
Yeah. And that's really great too, because like a lot of times people get caught up in the whole gist of, oh, it's a title, it's my title, but you can be a leader in any title, any position that you have, and it's the way that you carry yourself. And like you said, the growth and experience that you gain from those positions. So, kind of touching on those a little bit more, um, you mentioned how it was a little bit harder, like stepping back, and because you're very hands-on. I'm the same way. Besides that, what would you say are the most like challenging aspects in these positions that you see or have experienced?
Um, I mean, I feel like one of it being just like self-confidence. I mean, like when you are in these positions, when you get elected, it's just kind of like wow, like other people do see the skills and just other areas that I can bring to this position. But after you're in it, it's very, at least for me, it was very self-critical along the way. I would just look at something and I wouldn't see the good, I would only see the bad. And it wasn't until like the end of the terms where I was like, I did a pretty rad job. Like I didn't, fail at my position. So I would say that was one of the hard things that I kind of went through. And just be going back to the idea of how I never really envisioned myself being president of anything, maybe vice president, but I never really felt like I had enough knowledge or skills to be in those positions. And then as well as being, a woman of color, for the Collegiate Panhellenic Council, I was the first Latina president that they had, which is,
Yeah.
within the Collegiate Panhellenic Council, it's, predominantly white. Um, so it's a rewarding, honor to be the first of BIPOC women in there. But at the same time, it's, you feel yourself, or you feel like you're being criticized a lot more than other women would be. And so within my leadership positions, that's, something that I've had to really fight back on and, not go straight to the mindset of just because, I'm brown doesn't mean I can't do a sufficient job.
Yeah.
Um, and just knowing that my perspectives and my experiences in life bring a whole lot more than what others can bring. Just because, not everyone has gone through the same unique experiences I have. Not everyone can relate to someone else that possibly has gone through those same experiences like I have. So that was just, yeah,
Yeah.
kind of on a tangent there.
Yeah, no, you're good. We kind of talked about in one of my classes this semester It was called Democracy and Diversity. It's part of our liberal arts requirements because we're a liberal arts university. And it was talking about how all the experiences that you're going to see from everybody are going to be different, whether they are a person of color versus not. And everyone's going to experience those different things. And that's what truly shapes people into who they are today, is those experiences. And even if you have like this one experience, like you're never going to judge somebody based off one thing. You're going to look at them as a well-rounded person. And I think that you bring that to the table very well. Of, hey, like, yes, I am from a different background, but I can still get the job done. And I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
So, and then you mentioned like the rewarding experience, just being that position. What are some other things that you would say are like rewarding aspects of being a part of these organizations that you've like built and kind of seen? Like, I did that, and it's like those type of things.
Yeah, so I guess kind of focusing on student government. Um, like I said, I was in charge of the freshman leadership council. So it's like a cohort of 20 to 25-ish first year students that it's kind of like a stepping stone into student government, but just more about let's grow your leadership skills. Let's talk about UNO, where you can, incorporate these skills while you're here at school and after. So going through the application process, interview process, selecting everyone that I wanted in there. It was very tiring. But at the end of the day, everyone that I had chosen were just incredible students, and some of them are, my friends now. And while at the start of the semester we had a few students, have to step back from the organization just because they couldn't fit it into their schedule, or they just had other things come up. In those moments, it was kind of like, oh man, like this sucks. Like I'm probably not doing a good job, but understanding that there are other circumstances that are beyond me that can't, allow everyone to be in there. But afterwards, seeing just how well everyone got along, like it wasn't just like okay, let me go to this Thursday night meeting and then leave. It was, everyone was like friends in there. And that was something my previous advisor had told me. Alex Young had mentioned how he felt like I was one of the best VPs to, go about FLC. And that was a huge confidence booster, just because, like I said, I kind of pick at myself. I don't acknowledge the good that I do. But when it came time to student government elections for this school year, a large majority of the FLC students had applied, and in past years they had not done that. Maybe at max 2 or 3 would continue on, but this year we had, I think, 5 or 6 continue on, and that was more than previous years. And I just felt proud that like my cohort here was able to achieve
Yeah.
that, which is awesome.
Yeah, and like a lot of people might say like, oh, going from like 2 to 3 to like 5 or 6 like isn't a big number, but like when you're starting with such a small group of people and then you get to see them like transition and grow and then want to continue on, like those extra what like 4 people, like that's a huge impact that you're making and setting them up to even step into the roles and positions that you had previously. So I think that's super great to hear that. um, so kind of switching gears a little bit and talking about your own personal leadership philosophy, what are some key values or key points in your personal leadership style that really stick out to you that you try to embody?
Definitely DEIA efforts. Just because, you know, being a first generation Latina going to a predominantly white institution, and not really seeing much representation growing up in, leadership positions, I of course wanted to give that opportunity to those that may not have had the opportunity.
Mhm.
But also just making sure that it's inclusive and accessible to everyone. Like it's tough when you want to be involved, but you can't because maybe you can't get there for transportation issues, or
Yeah.
you have a class going on. And when it came at least to FLC, I had given the members the option of Zoom if it was absolutely like last option. This is the only way that they can do it. That was there so that they could still participate and
Yeah.
be a part of it, as well as, making sure that because a student had a class until 5:30, and if they missed the first 15 minutes every single week, that would, give them the great experience that others are having. So pushing back our meeting time, only even if it only meant like an hour rather than an hour and a half, that's what I did to ensure,
Yeah.
everyone was able to come. Um and just, knowing that, and having been through those same experiences where I would have student council Friday mornings at in high school, and I had absolutely no way to get there because I didn't have a car. My mom worked early in the morning at a meat packing plant, and I rode the bus,
Yeah.
and constantly struggling to get there and being afraid that I'd get kicked out. Like, that is not something that I wanted to continue on. Um, and just making sure that if someone needed the support, if they needed to take a step like away from it for school or whatever it needed to be, that they wouldn't be faced with criticism. Like, I was totally like open and understanding, and I'd constantly check up on my students to see, hey, like, how's it going? Like, when do you think I'll be back? Like, what do you need from me? Like, what is the best way that I can support you at this moment? Um, so that just kind of
Yeah.
drove.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I had a question after that, but you answered it perfectly. The question was, what is your connection between both equity and leadership? Equity being like that fairness and like not being or being impartial. And kind of what you were saying is like you're not going to punish somebody for something that they can't control because of experiences that you've had where you didn't want to feel like you were going to be punished for something that you couldn't control either. So I think that's something that we have to look at also. And kind of like what we were talking about earlier, everyone's going to be coming from these different places with different circumstances, even like throughout college. People are coming through different majors, they're going to have different class schedules. So making sure that people can get to those things and like still be a part of it and making sure that they're included is an important effort to make because like you want everyone to experience these things. So I think that,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, yeah, that I loved your answer for that. That was great. And so kind of just like digging like a little bit deeper, what does it mean to you to have an inclusive vision of leadership?
An inclusive vision of leadership.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I guess kind of going back to like that representation aspect. Just because, you know, if I hadn't had that push back in middle school, I don't think I really would have pushed myself to, to be so heavily involved in high school to being so heavily involved now in college. Just because obviously look different. I have different backgrounds than everyone else. And I, sometimes didn't really feel like I could have been included. Like, maybe I didn't fit what they were looking for, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So now, being in these leadership positions, I don't really want anyone to feel that way. And I'm actively trying to do, or plan efforts to make sure that it is inclusive for everyone, in terms of whether it's our meeting times, or just beyond what's going on during those meetings. So, for example, in Tito, um one thing we're talking about is how practicum experiences and student teaching experiences isn't inclusive for everyone in terms of transportation or clothing, or just money in general.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do right now is plan a clothing drive of business professional clothing, so that students who are going out in the field are able to come and pick out clothes that they would need. They're able to get it altered right away there.
Yeah.
Thankfully, one of our sponsors, her husband, Taylor, so he's able to help out with that. And it's just, something as small as that to make sure everyone is included, even if it's in clothes. it's there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
And
hope
it
that answers the question.
no, yeah, that does. And it kind of just like brings an example that people can like put together. I know like so, a lot of our students at Doan, um, especially going into like sophomore years when you first start your practicum experience. And I know all of my friends leading up to that were like, I have to get clothes for this. And I thought to myself, I'm like, what do you like? I didn't even think of like a simple thing such as like a dress code like that. So bringing that inclusive part in there and like making sure that like you have that opportunity for everybody and making it accessible is great to hear. And then also just like with the rides and everything, like everyone has busy schedules. Some people are probably trying to play sports or something along with doing this, so a lot of their schedules might get jumbled, but having that inclusive vision of I want everyone to be able to succeed is going to push them through that moment. And I'm sure that they're more than grateful for that opportunity and effort that you're making to make sure that they're having a great experience. So, again, like switching gears, so we have 4 values in our Hanson Leadership Program. Um, Part of Doan. So that is like our cohort of freshmen that come in and go through leadership classes. And then you will continue and end up getting or going through and getting a minor in leadership studies, I believe. So within those values, those are empowerment, advocacy, depth, and courage. So kind of just talking to you and getting to know you more, I feel like you'd be able to really touch on the depth and advocacy part of those values based off of what you have told me. So how would you say or how would you define advocacy or even depth in your own words?
Ooh, well, advocacy is just, speaking up when something is wrong, or, you're just like unsure of if it is, inclusive or accessible, or, just in general appropriate if someone else is going to hear it. But also just, advocating for change. And change doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong, but it does mean something could be better, something could be improved. And just, using your voice, especially as students, it is incredibly important that we use our voices, because that's where we have the most power when it comes to these institutional changes that we want on our campuses. And just, I feel like in terms of like depth, just, I know it's not as easy for everyone to maybe, open up or share their own personal experiences, but just even that could just deepen the advocacy that you do on campus, or, just be on to get others to truly understand and just hopefully change their mind when it comes to certain things.
Yeah. Yeah, and also like looking or thinking back on like our conversation and talking about how at first like you didn't feel like you could be in these positions, but then once you were elected in, like you knew that, hey, like I can do this, like I have done great things. Looking back on all your work, how would you say that you embody like courage throughout your leadership style and kind of try to pass that on to the people that you meet and are a part of these organizations with?
Honestly, just I feel like the way I kind of go about that is encouraging others to go out and, try these things that are outside of their comfort zone. And I mean, generally when I do try to push someone to do something, it's not because like, oh, just do it. It's because, I genuinely see something in them, and I try to let them know, like I try to highlight the good that is within them. And, always tell them, like it could go two ways. Like you could most likely get it, and, you'll have this experience, or you won't, and you learn and you grow from it, and you get better at it. And, most times I always try to share like a personal experience, so it's, not just saying words that come out of my mouth, but it's, coming from a area of, genuineness.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always try to make sure people, hear about the good that they're doing and know that they're valued, just because that is something I critique the most on myself, and when I do hear the good that I do from others, it just reassures me and gives me more confidence to continue on and do better things and grow in my areas. So that's just kind of like a main
Yeah.
driver of what I do. So yeah.
Yeah, you come from a point of empathy and a point of understanding because you've also been in that position and you want people to know that they are valued just as much as you are valued to other people. So that's great. Yeah, and kinda just, like, wrapping up this a little bit, what do you have like, if you have any events coming up or anything along those lines, this would be a good time to just shout them out, get it out there. So what's on, like, the horizon for you?
Yeah. So um since I am done with CPC, that I my term is up, so I will be finishing that off, handing it off to our next president. So just supporting them in whatever they need. But in terms of Tito, as I mentioned earlier, we are in the works of planning a clothing drive. So right now we're just trying to get donations. It's been a little hard to find previous students or even teachers at the moment that have any, gently used clothing items to give to students, because we don't really know what is needed in terms of sizes. So we're just trying to get everything that we
Everything,
can
yeah.
just to offer it. Yeah. So we're in the works of that. In terms of my sorority, I don't hold any leadership positions in that anymore just because I'm a senior. So it's all towards the underclassmen. So they'll be handling that on their own. But I mean, right now it's mainly that Tito clothing project. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I wish you luck to that. I really hope that that is
Thank
something
you.
that people can take and do throughout the years and make it ongoing. So, I have one last question for you. If you could give the version of yourself from 15 years ago one piece of advice, what would it be and why?
Ooh. It's probably like really basic and cliche, but I'd probably say just don't be afraid. Just because there are a lot of things that I missed out on just because I was afraid. I was afraid that I wouldn't fit in, that I wasn't smart enough, that I didn't possess the skills in order to thrive in those areas. And looking back on it now as a senior in college, about to graduate in May, it's like why was I so hesitant on that? Like I had the opportunity. I could have, crashed. I could have failed. Or I could have done really good. And either way, it was going to be a learning experience. And even though you're like nervous and scared of being embarrassed and cringing at your own actions, like it's so much more than that. And I'm still trying to not be scared when I do certain things, but I've definitely gotten out of my shell and gained a whole lot more confidence that I wish I would have had back then.
Yeah. And I think that's great advice for a lot of people that sometimes we forget because we do think that it's such a simple thing, like, "Oh, don't be afraid." Well, it's hard not to be afraid sometimes just with the things that are thrown at you. So, kinda just a little reminder for everybody to not be afraid when you're going into these situations because you've got this, you're well prepared, and even if you aren't prepared all the way, then you're gonna be prepared by the end of this experience. So,
Mhm.
I wanna
And
thank
it's
you. Oh,
oh,
sorry.
sorry.
No,
No,
go
I'm
ahead, go ahead.
gonna say, and it's like you're going through those steps, and as you grow and you gain this confidence, you don't realize that there are other people looking at you and learning from you and using you as a role model to get where you are, but in their own way.
Yeah,
Like I like this was the first year that wasn't like my mom hearing from like women in the community saying that I was a role model to them, but hearing from actual students I have mentored throughout the years at UNL saying that they've looked up to me. And it was kind of like shocking to hear because it's like, what? Why are you looking up to me? I'm just like another student. But it's surreal to hear that and acknowledge that, like, others do look up to you. Others look at the work that you're doing and they thrive to be that. They thrive to do the same work but take it above and beyond. And I feel like in terms of, being scared, just realize that there are other people looking up at you and using you as a reference in their own
Yeah.
lives.
And not to be, or kind of building off of that, to not be scared that people are looking up to you, but feel inspired that people are looking up to you because you are building the stepping stones that they are going to build for somebody else. And you're a part of like a legacy of leaders that you're embodying. So, yeah,
Exactly.
I think that was really great to add. But yeah, I would really like to thank you for taking your time out of your day, especially over break. Congratulations on finishing up your first semester of your last year and getting to talk with me. I really appreciate it, and I'm so glad that I got to meet you and interview you. So if there's any last questions you have for me, feel free to ask, but other than that, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm so sorry that it took so long in terms of
No, it's
scheduling
okay.
the craziness of the semester.
Yeah. All right. Well, I
Awesome.
hope
Well,
you
oh, I'm so
No,
sorry.
it's
I was
okay.
just gonna ask, like, so what's the general, like, I guess, goal of this interview process or project that you guys are doing?
Yeah, so DLE, so that's Doan Leadership Educators. Our goal is to interview people both on campus and off campus. We're kind of reaching from Nebraska area to even other states and getting to know people's stories, getting to know their leadership style. Because, like we were talking about, your experiences and growing up, those really shape how you are as a leader. And not every leader is going to look the same. Some people are going to react in situations differently compared to somebody else who grew up completely different. So even if you grew up in the same area, like you're not always going to be the same person, and showing those differences throughout your leaders and the impacts that they make and the organizations that they're a part of is something that we want to expand and bring to our students as well to get them inspired, because we believe that we're like Doan as a whole like builds leaders, and we want to showcase that through just simple interviews or different spotlights that we have on our Instagram or YouTube to let people know that the difference that you're making is not going unnoticed. So yeah,
Oh, well, thank you for letting me be a part of that.
of course. All right. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great Christmas and New Year's and happy holidays.
Thanks, you too.
Okay,
And good luck
bye.
next semester.